Have you ever found yourself standing in a place where there are no road signs, no maps, no clear direction? A place where your friends can't guide you, your family doesn't understand you, and even your own wisdom feels insufficient. That's uncharted territory. Let me remind you, when you step into the unknown, you are stepping into the arena where God does his best work. Because the places you cannot navigate, his hand can lead. The seas you cannot part, his hand can divide. The battles you cannot win, his hand will fight for you. You may not know the way, you know the one who is the way. There are moments in life when we find ourselves holding a map that suddenly stops making sense. You thought you knew the route, you thought you knew the plan, but then life throws you into a place where no map exists, no GPS signal can reach, and no instructions seem clear. That's the moment where fear tries to whisper that you're lost. But hear me clearly, you are not lost, you are being guided, because when your map fails, God's hand takes over. His hand does not tremble, his hand does not miss, his hand does not need an update or recalibration. His hand has been writing the story before you even took your first step. Think about when you start a new job, you walk in on the first day, unsure of the faces, unsure of the expectations, unsure if you even belong. Your RA Some got you in the door, but it cannot walk you through the politics, the personalities, the tests you didn't study for. That's where his hand steps in. Suddenly, you find wisdom flowing in conversations you didn't plan. Suddenly, opportunities open where you didn't knock. Suddenly, you make connections you couldn't have strategized. That's God's hand guiding you where your human knowledge runs dry. Consider the young woman stepping into motherhood for the first time. No book fully prepares you. No class can give you the heart to stay awake all night with a child who won't stop crying. No mentor can answer every what if you face. Something happens, an instinct rises, a patience you never knew you had appears, a love that can't be explained takes over. That is the hand of God guiding where maps of human preparation fail. He supplies what you cannot learn. He strengthens where you thought you were too weak. He carries you where you would have collapsed. And what about the man who loses everything he built? One day the business is thriving, the next day it collapses. The savings are gone, the reputation is shaken, the map he drew for his future is torn to pieces. But in the rubble of disappointment, God's hand begins to show him a new path. Maybe it's a new business idea he never considered. Maybe it's the rediscovery of time with his children that he once neglected. Maybe it's a skill he didn't know could bless people. That's how God takes you off your self-made map and reroutes you into his divine plan. Sometimes God intentionally lets your map run out. He does it so you won't rely on landmarks, but on his voice. Remember the Israelites in the wilderness. They had no map, no GPS, no clear roads. What they had was a cloud by day and fire by night. They couldn't navigate the desert by their own sight. They had to look up and trust the guiding hand of God. And even now, he may strip away your familiar markers so you'll look up instead of looking around. Think about a student studying for an exam. You study hard, you memorize, you prepare, but then you sit down and suddenly the paper seems like it's written in another language. Panic tries to set in. Yet in that moment, something you didn't think you remembered comes back. An answer you didn't write down flows into your mind. A solution you hadn't practiced becomes clear. That's not just memory. That's the hand of God supplying in the gaps of your preparation. There's a mother raising children without support, wondering how to provide. The bills don't match the paycheck, the needs don't match the resources, and the map of financial planning fails. But somehow, every month food shows up on the table, the kids have clothes on their backs, and she keeps going when she should have fainted. That's God's hand. Unseen, undeniable. Think about how a ship sails the ocean. The map can tell you the destination, but it cannot control the wind. Sailors can plan, they cannot command the waves, yet somehow the wind shifts in their favor and the ship is carried forward. Life is like that. You plan, you strategize. At the end of the day, it is the invisible hand of God that steers you through the waters you cannot control. Even in relationships, the map fails. You thought this friendship would last forever. You thought this person would walk with you to the end. Then betrayal happens, or distance grows, People change. Suddenly the map of trust collapses. But while people walk away, God's hand leads you to those who will water your soul, who will strengthen your spirit, who will not abandon you in the midnight hour. And isn't it true that sometimes you don't even know what kept you alive? The accident should have killed you. The disease should have consumed you. The heartbreak should have destroyed you. But you're still here because your map was right, but because his hand was strong. You may not be able to explain how you made it. You can testify that the hand of God never let you go. So when your map fails, don't panic. Don't assume you're abandoned. It's often in those uncharted moments, in those unpredictable turns, that you will see his hand most clearly. Because the absence of a map is not the absence of direction. It is the invitation to be guided by the one whose hand never fails. The most difficult places to stand in life are the places where you don't know what's coming next. The unknown rattles us because it strips away control. We want to see the next 5 steps. We want to hold the blueprint. We want the security of clarity. But God has a way of using the unknown not as a punishment, as a classroom. The unknown becomes his training ground, the place where he shapes, molds, stretches, and strengthens you in ways that comfort never could. It is in the shadows of uncertainty that your faith gains its muscles, that your courage finds its roar, and that your purpose is sharpened like a blade. Think of a soldier in boot camp. Before they are ever sent into battle, they are stripped of comfort, stripped of the familiar, thrust into unpredictable drills and harsh conditions. The mud, the fatigue, the endless hours are not meant to destroy them, but to prepare them. The unknown of the training ground turns civilians into warriors. In the same way, God uses the seasons of not knowing, of unanswered questions, sudden changes, to train your spirit for the battles and blessings that lie ahead. Look at the student who leaves home for the first time to attend college in a new city. They don't know anyone, they don't know the streets, they don't know if they'll make it through. That feeling of being out of place is uncomfortable, but in that space, they learn resilience, independence, problem solving. They discover strengths they never knew they had simply because the unknown demanded they rise higher. God often places us in such seasons so that hidden abilities, dormant faith, and unexplored strength will surface. Consider the young entrepreneur starting a business with no guarantee of success. Every day is filled with uncertainty. Will the clients come? Will the bills be paid? Will the idea even work? The fear of the unknown is heavy, but in that space, the entrepreneur learns creativity, endurance, trust in timing. Many of the greatest success stories were born not in certainty, but in uncertainty. God trains leaders by throwing them into waters where their feet cannot touch the bottom. That's where you learn to swim by faith and not by sight. Think about a woman stepping into a new role after years in the same routine. Maybe she's been a stay-at-home mom now entering the workforce. She's switching careers into a field she knows little about. The unknown presses on her insecurities, but in that environment, she discovers adaptability, courage, and the ability to thrive under pressure. God uses the discomfort of the unknown to expose the greatness that comfort concealed. The unknown also becomes training ground in our relationships. Imagine being betrayed by someone you trusted. Suddenly, you're in uncharted emotional territory, unsure of how to heal, unsure of how to trust again, unsure if you can even love again. It's in that painful space that God trains your heart to forgive, to discern, and to love wisely. It's through heartbreak in the unknown that you develop maturity and depth you could never gain in ease. Parents know this truth all too well. No book can fully prepare you for raising a teenager. You walk into the unknown of mood swings, new challenges, modern temptations. But in that space, God trains patience, wisdom, and compassion in you. He equips you to see beyond the surface and lead your children through storms that neither of you fully understand. Unknown season of parenting becomes the ground where your faith in God's protection deepens, because you realize you cannot control everything. And that's exactly how He designed it. Even health battles teach this lesson. A man goes to the doctor expecting a routine checkup, only to walk out with a diagnosis that turns his life upside down. Suddenly, He's in the unknown, unsure if he'll recover, unsure how life will look tomorrow. And yet it is in that valley that he learns to pray differently, to value life differently, to cling to hope in a way he never did before. The sickness is not the training, but the unknown it produces is the classroom where God refines his spirit. Think about Abraham, called by God to leave everything familiar and step into a land he had never seen. No map, no details, no certainty, only a promise. The unknown was the ground where God trained him into the father of nations. Or Moses, raised in Pharaoh's palace, but then led into the wilderness for 40 years. What looked like a wasted unknown season was the very ground where God trained him to lead millions through the desert. Over and over, Scripture shows that God hides preparation inside uncertainty. The unknown is where character is built. It is where dependency on God is forged. It is where pride is stripped and humility is grown. It is where we stop pretending to have control and learn to rest in the one who always has control. Just like a seed buried in the soil, it cannot see, it cannot move, it has no idea what's happening. But under the pressure of darkness, it is being trained to break open and become something greater than it ever imagined. So when God leads you into places where the map ends, when the future feels blurry, when your questions outnumber your answers, don't despise it. Because the unknown is not chaos. It is curriculum. It is the hand of God training you for what you prayed for, training you for the weight of destiny, training you for blessings that require the strength of preparation. The unknown is not a dead end. It is the proving ground where you are transformed into who you were always meant to be. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that can paralyze a human being. It creeps in quietly, whispers loudly, and builds walls in your mind that stop you from moving forward. Fear convinces you that you are not enough. You cannot make it, that the risk is too high, that the pain will be too great. Fear is the enemy that stands at the door of every new opportunity, every dream, every leap of faith. And yet there is a weapon stronger than fear. It is faith. Faith does not deny the presence of fear. It declares that fear will not dictate the direction. Fear may shout, but faith becomes the compass that points you back toward purpose, toward God's promise, toward the destiny waiting beyond the shadows. Think about a child learning to ride a bicycle for the first time. Fear of falling is real. The wobbly wheels make the heart race and the mind screams. Don't let go. But the moment the child decides to trust the balance, to trust the process, they begin to pedal with confidence. Fear said, stay still, but faith said, move forward. Many of us are standing in life with the brakes on, terrified of falling, when God is saying, if you trust me, I'll balance you while you ride. Consider the young graduate stepping into the workforce for the first time. The fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough, the fear of interviews and competition weigh heavily. Fear says, you'll never make it, you'll embarrass yourself, you'll fail before you start. But faith whispers, I have prepared a place for you. I have given you gifts. I will open doors no man can shut. That faith becomes the compass that leads the graduate to apply, to show up, to speak with confidence, and eventually to step into the opportunities God designed. Fear is also the enemy in relationships. Think of the person who has been deeply hurt in the past, left with scars from betrayal or abandonment. Fear screams, never trust again, never open your heart again, never be vulnerable again. Fear convinces them that protection is found in isolation. But faith says, love is still real, trust is still possible, and healing can still happen. Faith becomes the compass that allows them to risk love again, not because the past didn't hurt, because the future is bigger than the pain behind them. In financial struggles, fear grips hard. Imagine a single parent trying to provide for their children. The bills stack higher than the paycheck. The future feels impossible. And fear says, you'll never make it. Your kids will suffer. You're going to collapse under this pressure. Fear magnifies the mountain until it looks unclimbable. But faith becomes the compass that says, Jehovah Jireh is still your provider. You may not see how, but he will make a way. That faith pushes the parent to keep going, to work, to pray, to trust that provision will appear. And many times, it does in ways they could never have predicted. Fear shows up in health crisis too. person sits in a doctor's office and hears a diagnosis that shakes them to their core. Fear says, this is the end, there is no hope, life is over. Fear magnifies the sickness until it overshadows everything else. But faith steps in as the compass and says, even in the valley of the shadow of death, you shall not fear evil, for God is with you. Healing is possible, peace is possible, and even in the darkest place, His light shines. That faith gives them the strength to fight, the courage to endure treatments, the resilience to keep living, the hope to believe for restoration. Fear is the enemy of dreams. How many people have a vision, an idea, a God-given dream in their heart, but fear convinces them to bury it? Fear says, you're not smart enough, you don't have the resources, you'll embarrass yourself, no one will support you. And so the dream dies in silence. But faith is the compass that says, if God gave the dream, He will provide the resources. If He planted the vision, He will open the doors. Step out even when you don't see the staircase. Some of the greatest inventions, businesses, ministries were birthed not because fear disappeared, but because faith was louder. Fear is the enemy of calling. Look at Moses standing before the burning bush. Fear said, you can't speak, you're not qualified, people won't listen. But faith became the compass that led him to Pharaoh's court and into history as a deliverer. Look at Peter stepping out of the boat. Fear said, the waves will drown you, the storm will kill you. But faith said, if Jesus is out there, then step out. As long as his eyes stayed on faith, the compass held him above the water. Fear will always scream louder when you're close to breakthrough, but faith is the compass that will always point you back to God's promises. Think about the everyday worker who is afraid to speak up in a meeting, afraid to present their ideas, afraid of rejection or ridicule. Fear makes them small, keeps their voice silent, robs them of influence. Faith, as the compass says, your voice matters, your ideas carry weight, your presence has purpose. When they choose faith, they speak. One act of courage can shift everything about their future. Fear is the enemy because it paralyzes, but faith is the compass because it mobilizes. Fear locks you in place, but faith points you forward. Fear clouds your vision, but faith clears your direction. Fear tells you to turn back. Faith tells you to press on. And every single example of greatness in scripture, in history, in daily life was achieved not because fear was absent, because faith was chosen as the compass when fear tried to lead. Destiny will never be found in the places where you are most comfortable. Comfort is sweet. It is also dangerous because it lulls you into complacency and convinces you that the nest is safer than the sky. But if an eagle never leaves the nest, it will never discover that it was created to soar. Destiny demands discomfort because only in the stretching, only in the breaking, only in the moments where you don't know if you can endure, do you actually discover what you are capable of becoming. Discomfort is not God's way of punishing you. It is God's way of positioning you. Every person who walked into purpose had to first walk through pain, uncertainty, and struggle. Think of a seed planted in the ground. Before it becomes a tree, it must endure the discomfort of being buried in darkness, hidden in soil, pressed by weight, and broken open. If the seed resisted the discomfort, it would never grow. The breaking was necessary for the blooming. In the same way, when God is preparing you for destiny, He often buries you in places where you feel forgotten, overlooked, or pressed down. But that discomfort is the very soil where your greatness is taking root. Look at Abraham, called to leave his father's house, his culture, his familiar land. The comfort of home was safe, but his destiny demanded discomfort. He had to travel into unknown lands, face famine, endure battles, and trust God without a map. It was the pain of leaving what was known that positioned him to inherit what was promised. Discomfort was the doorway to destiny. Think about the young professional working in a job that feels beneath them. The hours are long, the pay is low, the recognition is non-existent. It feels unfair. In that discomfort, skills are sharpened, humility is formed, endurance is built. Later, when greater opportunities come, they are able to handle the weight because the uncomfortable seasons taught them resilience. That frustrating workplace became a training ground for destiny. Consider the woman who chooses to go back to school in her 30s or 40s, sitting in classrooms with younger students, juggling family responsibilities. Facing the fear of failure is uncomfortable, but in that discomfort, she discovers new gifts, gains fresh confidence, opens doors to a career that would have never been possible if she had stayed in the safety of routine. Destiny pulled her out of comfort and pushed her into a place where growth required sacrifice. Even athletes understand this principle. No champion is made in comfort. The sweat, the sore muscles, the exhaustion, the early mornings, the endless drills, all of it is discomfort. But without it, there is no victory. The discomfort of training produces the strength needed for the championship. In life, the battles we fight, the tears we shed, the challenges we endure are the spiritual workouts that prepare us for the crown waiting ahead. Destiny demanded discomfort from Moses. He was called from the luxury of Pharaoh's palace into the wilderness, where he endured 40 years of isolation and obscurity. That season of discomfort prepared him to lead Israel out of bondage. If Moses had refused the discomfort of the desert, he would have never discovered the destiny of a deliverer. Discomfort was not detour, it was preparation. Look at Jesus himself. The comfort of heaven could not fulfill the destiny of salvation. He had to step into the discomfort of humanity, the rejection of men, suffering of the cross. His greatest glory came through his greatest discomfort. If the Son of God's destiny demanded discomfort, then ours will too. Think about an everyday example of family that decides to move to another country for better opportunities. The language is unfamiliar. The culture is different. Support system is gone. The discomfort is overwhelming at times, but through it, they discover new opportunities, new strength, and new purpose. What once felt like loss becomes the soil of destiny. Or consider the single mother raising children without help. The sleepless nights, endless responsibilities, the financial strain. It is uncomfortable beyond measure. Yet through that discomfort, she becomes stronger, wiser, capable. She discovers a resilience she never knew she had, and her children grow up seeing what perseverance looks like. Destiny demanded her discomfort, but that same discomfort birthed legacy. Even in small daily choices, this principle shows up. A student preparing for exams must endure the discomfort of late nights, missed parties, and intense focus. That discomfort produces a future filled with opportunities. A person trying to get healthy must endure the discomfort of exercise, discipline, and sacrifice. The reward of health makes the pain worthwhile. Destiny always pulls you out of what is easy and into what is stretching. Growth and greatness are never born in the cozy spaces of life. Discomfort pushes you beyond what you thought you could handle. It strips away the illusion of control and forces you to lean on God in ways you never would if everything stayed easy. It shapes character, builds endurance, and reveals strengths you didn't know were inside you. When you look at every story of greatness, every testimony of breakthrough, every life of purpose, there is always a season of discomfort that paved the way. Destiny doesn't negotiate with your comfort. It demands that you leave the nest, step into the storm, walk through the fire, and embrace the pressure, because only there will you find the version of yourself that was always meant to rise. You've heard the whispers of destiny calling you, and now you stand at the edge of your unknown, at the edge of your discomfort, at the edge of your fear. This is the place where ordinary ends and extraordinary begins. This is the place where your excuses no longer have authority and your faith must rise and take command. You were not created to remain hidden in safety. You were created to walk boldly into storms because storms reveal the power of the one who walks on water. Don't you know that the God who split the Red Sea has not lost his power? Don't you know that the same hand that lifted David above Goliath is the same hand resting on you right now? You are not abandoned in the wilderness. You are being prepared in the wilderness. You are not buried by your struggles. You are planted for your breakthrough. Every scar you carry is proof that you survived what was meant to destroy you. Every tear you cried watered the soil for the harvest that is about to break forth. You may have been rejected, but rejection is simply redirection toward your assignment. You may have been broken, but broken vessels still carry oil, and that oil is what anoints you for your next chapter. Don't despise the pain, because pain is the midwife of purpose. Don't despise the pressure, because pressure is what produces diamonds. Don't despise the waiting, because waiting is where wings are built for soaring. Dare you to look fear in the face and declare, you will not dictate my life. You will not silence my voice. You will not rob me of my destiny. Faith is not just a word. Faith is your weapon, your compass, your fire in the midnight hour. When fear says, you can't, faith declares, through Christ, I already did. When fear says, turn back, faith says, press on. When fear says, you are weak, faith declares, his strength is made perfect in my weakness. You don't need all the answers. You need the courage to take the next step. And when your feet move, heaven moves with you. Greatness never bows to comfort. History is not written by those who played it safe, but by those who were willing to step into the unknown. Abraham left the familiar. Joseph endured the pit. Moses faced the Red Sea. Ruth walked into a foreign land. Esther risked her life. Jesus endured the cross. Every single one of them discovered that destiny always demands discomfort, but destiny always delivers glory. Your life is no different. The same God who used them is writing a story with you. So lift your head high, square your shoulders, and remind yourself that you are stronger than the struggle, greater than the obstacle, and bigger than the fear. You were chosen for this moment. You were anointed for this season. You were built for the battle. The enemy tried to stop you, but here you are. Life tried to break you, but here you stand. People may have walked away, but God never left. And if his hand is on you, then no power on earth can stop you. It's time to move. It's time to rise. It's time to step into the uncharted with faith as your compass. Stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Ships were never built to stay in the harbor. Stop hiding in comfort. Eagles were never created to stay in the nest. Stop bowing to fear. Warriors were never made to retreat. You are called. You are chosen. You are destined. The discomfort you feel is only the labor pains of greatness about to be born. So walk boldly, speak loudly, live fully, and believe fiercely, because the world is waiting for the version of you that only destiny can reveal.